So we know that vagus nerve establishes one of the connections between the brain and the gastrointestinal tract and, well, basically the rest of the body. And it's not the whole of the gut-brain axis, but it's a big part of it. And so the information goes back and forth. And that's an important point, really, because sometimes people can be focused on one or the other, yes? So if we're really dealing with anxiety and we're looking at this vagus nerve connection, we need to first and foremost remember that it is actually a two-way communication, right? So we could look at the gut, the neurotransmitters and the rest to improve the situation in the brain and the perceptions and so on, but obviously it works the other way around as well. And so there is actually some evidence that shows that vagus nerve stimulation is a promising treatment of refractory depression. So when it's drug resistant and it's not responding, vagus nerve, there was a study in a European multi-center or somewhere, they demonstrated that when they stimulated the vagus nerve, I mean, just actually look at the percentages here. I've got this, my little cheat sheet here. So when they used VNS on vagus nerve stimulation on depressive symptoms in patients with treatment-resistant depression, over a period of 3 months, the response rate was 37% and remission was 17%. And they extended then the treatment to 1 year, and the response rate reached 53% and the remission rate reached 33%. So there is certainly something to it. And so now we know that, that there's going to be more research into this tool that is the vagus nerve stimulation for depression, but also for things like post-traumatic stress disorder, also inflammatory bowel disease. In fact, there's been so many different things. There's some research with autoimmunity as well. We have studies with fibromyalgia, we had studies with rheumatoid arthritis, very, very good results as well. Cancer also, believe it or not, particularly improving survival in the last stages of cancer. So this vagus nerve stimulation, because of this connection between the brain and the rest of the body and how many roles this one nerve has, because this is the really quite this unbelievable surprising thing is that one nerve can have so many different functions and connect to so many different organs. But that is the case, and this is why we're seeing this vagus nerve stimulation having such a positive impact with so many different things. Gut issues of all sorts, in fact, can be improved by vagus nerve stimulating strategies. But back to depression and the fact and the connection to inflammation. So the vagus nerve has some anti-inflammatory capacities, and there are three different pathways. There there. There is this hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis pathway. Then there's the splenic sympathetic anti-inflammatory pathway. And then there's the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. And the last one is the key pathway, really. So what that means is that a vagus nerve, when it is online, when it activates readily, when it's healthy, it's got a big capacity for keeping chronic inflammation at bay. So given that pretty much every single chronic illness that we can think of has got links to inflammation, this is a big deal again. It's a huge deal. Yeah. And interestingly, when we're talking about this gut-brain connection, there is the studies that you mentioned, there are some studies that actually show evidence of gut bacteria having beneficial effect on mood and anxiety. And the reason why we're talking about this in relation to the vagus nerve is because when they actually severed or cut the vagus nerve, the effect was not there, was minimized. It wasn't the same. So the conclusion is that communication between the bacteria in the gut and the brain, in this case, this was Lactobacillus rhamnosus, that was one. And the study, let me just find this real quick. Ingestion of Lactobacillus strain regulates emotional behavior and central GABA receptor expression in a mouse via the vagus nerve. So that was one, but that wasn't the only one. There was actually another study that looked at Bifidobacterium longum as well. And this was a study called The Anxiolytic Effect of Bifidobacterium longum Involves Vagal Pathways for Gut-Brain Communication. And again, the interesting thing was that Bifidobacterium longum was found to normalize anxiety-like behavior. And yet when the vagus nerve was cut, they did not observe that effect. So, so this is very interesting, this antidepressive, anxiolytic effects of those particular bacterial strains. But like I said, only if the vagus nerve clearly plays a huge role here, because without it, we don't quite have that effect.